Okay, this one's called The Piano Man. She had always loved watching him play. There was a meticulousness with which he moved his hands, one that mirrored a stern, precise concentration that weaved across his face. No words escaped him. She would imagine herself resting her arm gently against the wooden side of the large grand piano at which he always sat. She listened to his whimsical flourishes from her place at the bar. She swirled the drink in her hand in long, drawn-out circles, wondering if she would ever reach the bottom of her glass. His legs were spread outward on the cushioned seat at an angle, his hips thrust slightly forward with his back hunched even more so, his elbows jutting out like a Swiss army knife, all pointed and prodding. His hands oscillated casually across the ivory keys, each finger extending and retracting, flexing, knuckles whitening then reddening. Not a dance, a symphony of joints curving and untwisting. The strings were splayed out, the inner organs of the piano open to the air, clipping and pumping with each flit of a finger. If she watched close enough, it was as if the whole instrument was waving to her in swift, measured moments. 1, 2, 3, 4. He sometimes took a break and came to sit 3 seats away from her. He would order a whiskey some days or just a water the next, sometimes even a large glass of milk. They would nod at one another from the small distance that separated them, accustomed to each other's glances, accustomed to each other's smiles, but mostly accustomed to each other's habitation of the bar stools, their small niche where they had come to coexist. After so long, it had become their place. He played the piano all night. The sharps and flats laughed as each new note passed by in an elusive haze, hand in hand, blacks and whites blurring to a sheet of gray. She wondered what his fingers might feel like against her skin, wondered if his touch was calloused or smooth. She traced the pattern of his tight jaw and noticed how perfectly those eyes of his were hidden beneath the curtain of the notes of the simple song. She could not bring herself to take her eyes off of those hands of his that traced the length of the small keys. Perhaps she was afraid he might just disappear. It would be his last song. He bent his head down as if in prayer, his forehead nearly touching the backs of his hands. He was young, like her, but there was a wisdom about him that she could not explain. She wanted to ask him, wanted to know what had brought him to this place like her. He closed the cover over the keys, and even with the small chit-chat moving around her, it echoed like a climactic gunshot. It was done. He stood. He grabbed his coat off the rack near the front door. She wanted to call out to him, to ask him to sit with her and have a drink with her. She wanted to stand and touch his arm and ask, "How did you learn to play like that?" But she couldn't do it. His tired, sad eyes looked too much like her own. Oh, what a man he might have been before if she could have found him earlier. Another regular shuffled up to him and whispered something close, and he began to laugh. His laugh blended into the music of the somber bar, and it was all that she heard, and she was lifted up into the air with it. His face came back to her, his hands returning to his body, folding inward, gentle, as if, for a moment, he was cupping her face with the inside of his delicate palm. He turned to her then, eyes alive, smile alive, hands alive. He nodded and then walked out the door. She supposed she had always loved him from afar, and again, with another drink in hand, she would try to remind herself that she was alive too. Thank you.